Seraphina is standing in the front hallway of the Mills family home in Charlotte, dressed in her graduation gown, cap slightly tilted, a folded transit card pressed between two fingers. Outside, a transport carrier is reversing slowly into the driveway. The hydraulic hiss, the creak of the loading ramp, and then the 2026 Mercedes Benz C-Class rolling into view. Obsidian black, gleaming, a cream bow stretched across the hood like something from a catalog. Her mother Kathleen is already outside in her good dress, hands pressed to her face, crying the kind of tears she reserves for moments she decides are extraordinary. Her father Isaac stands slightly behind her, chest out, phone raised, recording everything. Her sister Lorelei, 1 year into community college, is screaming with delight, running toward the car in heels she clearly put on hours ago in anticipation. Nobody has turned toward the door. Nobody has looked inside the house. Nobody has asked how Seraphina is getting to the ceremony that starts in 44 minutes. Isaac calls back without turning around. "Take the train, Seraphina. We need to be here for your sister." Just like that. Seraphina doesn't slam the door, doesn't raise her voice. She picks up her bag, steps out quietly, and walks to the train station 4 blocks away. Alone, in her graduation gown, while the sounds of her family's celebration drift down the street behind her. On the platform, she buys a coffee she can barely afford and stands very still while the train slides in. She finds a seat by the window, watches Charlotte move past the glass, the houses, the intersections, the ordinary Saturday morning unfolding everywhere around her. And somewhere between one station and the next, something inside her goes quiet. Not broken, not defeated. My name is Seraphina Mills. I'm 26 years old. And what I'm about to tell you is the story of what I built from that train ride, and what I did when the people who put me on it came looking for a seat. The house itself described the Mills home in deliberate detail. A well-kept colonial in the Dilworth neighborhood. Beautiful neighborhood. Beautiful house. Inside, every wall tells a story, but only one character's. Lorelei's school portraits in matching frames down the hallway. Lorelei's dance recital trophies arranged on the living room shelves. A photo of Lorelei on Isaac's shoulders at a Panthers game, her arms raised, both of them laughing. Somewhere near the stairs, one small framed photo of Seraphina, age 8, slightly off-center, partially obscured by a taller vase. She is smiling in it. Nobody remembers when it was taken. I didn't grow up feeling hated. That would have been easier to name. I grew up feeling like a background detail in someone else's portrait. Present but peripheral. Visible enough to confirm I existed, invisible enough that nobody thought to ask how I was doing. Isaac's economics of love. Isaac Mills is not a cruel man by his own understanding. He is a pragmatist. He runs a mid-size corporate law firm, Finch & Mills Legal Group, and sees the world in terms of investment and return. Lorelei, social, magnetic, beautiful, represents something he recognizes and knows how to celebrate. She reflects the image he has built for himself and his household. Seraphina, quiet, academic, driven by curiosity rather than performance, is something he respects in the abstract but doesn't know how to champion. So he doesn't. Specific memory. Seraphina is 13. She wins a regional essay competition sponsored by a local business council. First place. A $500 prize. She comes home holding the certificate, pulse loud in her ears. Isaac looks up from his laptop. "That's good. Keep that for your applications." He turns back to his screen. That night at dinner, Kathleen talks for 20 minutes about Lorelei's upcoming dance showcase. Nobody mentions the essay again. Kathleen's world. Kathleen Mills is not indifferent. She is consumed. Lorelei is her project, her pride, her primary relationship. She schedules Lorelei's life like an executive assistant. The appointments, the outfits, the social calendar. Their bond is seamless and total. When Seraphina tries to enter it, she is never pushed away with hostility. She is redirected. Gently. Repeatedly. Specific memory. Seraphina is 15. Sitting at the kitchen counter doing homework while Kathleen folds laundry nearby. She wants to share something. A book she's been reading, a passage that moved her. She starts talking. "Mom, there's this chapter in the book I'm reading and the main character reminds me of Kathleen." That's lovely, honey. Can you do me a favor and start the dryer?" Lorelai's recital outfit needs to be ready by 6. Seraphina closes her book, swallows the sentence, goes to start the dryer. Internal monologue. She wasn't unkind. She just never had space. And after a while I stopped trying to fit into space that was always already full. The Christmas that set everything the year Seraphina turned 16. Christmas morning. Lorelai unwraps a weekend trip to a resort in Asheville, spa, horseback riding, the full arrangement. She shrieks. Isaac and Kathleen beam. Seraphina unwraps a box set of business and leadership books and a new desk organizer. Isaac. We know how focused you are. Thought those would be useful. No sarcasm in his voice. No malice. He genuinely believes this is an appropriate gift for her. That is somehow the most painful part. Lorelai was given experiences. I was given tools. They celebrated her for who she was. They equipped me for what they assumed I didn't need. The pattern calcifies brief, efficient narration moving through the high school years. Seraphina's academic achievements, honor roll, science fair placement, debate team, are acknowledged with brief nods. Lorelai's social milestones, homecoming court, a lead role in the school production, a feature in the local lifestyle magazine, are celebrated with dinners, photographs, and framed memories hung on the wall. By the time Seraphina leaves for university on a partial academic scholarship she spent months applying for on her own, no party is thrown. No dinner out. Kathleen hugs her at the door. You've always been the strong one. You'll be fine. Seraphina nods. She carries her bags to the car. Isaac drives her to the station. They talk about traffic. I stopped expecting them to see me somewhere around age 14. By the time I was 17 I had built an entire interior life they knew nothing about. Not because I hid it. Because they never thought to look. The real architecture of her days. Seraphina studies business and economics at UNC Charlotte. Her partial scholarship covers tuition. Everything else, housing, food, textbooks, transit, is hers to manage. She works 2 jobs. A morning shift at the campus administrative office filing enrollment paperwork, and 3 evening shifts per week at a financial services call center downtown. She learns to sleep in 4-hour segments. Learns which vending machines give extra change. Learns that exhaustion at a certain depth becomes indistinguishable from calm. There is a version of independence that people call strength. And then there is the version that exists because there is simply no alternative. I had the second kind. I wore it like the first because I had no other choice. Lorelai's feed versus Seraphina's reality. One specific Tuesday night. Seraphina is at the call center, headset on, handling a frustrated client's billing complaint at 10:47 p.m. Her phone buzzes with a notification. She glances at it between calls. Lorelai has posted a set of photos. A rooftop dinner in Charlotte, champagne glasses raised, caption reading. Dad said yes to the trip. Milan in the spring. Life is good. Seraphina sets her phone face down. Takes the next call. Somewhere under the exhaustion something sharpens. Not into anger. Into clarity. I didn't resent her for it. I redirected it. Every time I saw what was handed to her without effort, I used it the same way you'd use a compass. Not to stare at where you aren't, but to confirm the direction you're moving. Professor Harlan Voss, second year. Seraphina takes an elective course in organizational restructuring taught by Professor Harlan Voss. Retired industry consultant, notoriously direct, allergic to vague thinking. He teaches his students to look at struggling companies the way a diagnostician looks at a patient. With precision, not pity. He assigns one project that changes Seraphina's trajectory permanently. Find a real local business in visible decline, analyze it, and build a full recovery strategy. Seraphina spends 3 weekends visiting struggling businesses in the Noda Arts District. She settles on a small furniture workshop run by a quiet craftsman named Ephraim Doolin, 3rd-generation woodworker, extraordinary product, near-invisible market presence. She builds a 40-page restructuring document. Voss reads it twice. This isn't a student project, Mills. This is an actual plan. Have you considered what happens when you apply this outside a classroom? She hasn't. But she starts. The internship in Marmon Cross 3rd year. Seraphina secures an unpaid internship at a regional consulting firm run by Marmon Cross, sharp, territorial, the kind of professional who measures people by their usefulness to him, rather than their capacity. He assigns her administrative tasks almost exclusively. She does them without complaint and stays 2 hours after everyone else, teaching herself financial modeling, client presentation structure, and market positioning using the firm's own case files. One evening, Marmon leaves a thick rubber-banded folder on the edge of her desk without comment. It is labeled simply, "Dropped accounts inactive. File those somewhere. Or toss them. Doesn't matter." Seraphina takes the folder home that night. She doesn't file it. She reads every page. The folder full of overlooked stories inside the dropped accounts folder. 14 small and mid-sized businesses deemed too complicated, too niche, or too financially fragile for the firm to pursue. A regional textile company. A craft brewery with a devoted local following, but zero digital presence. A family-run logistics operation losing ground to larger competitors. A ceramic studio with a waiting list for its products but no strategy to scale. Each file is a story of something real being quietly abandoned, because nobody with resources thought it was worth the effort. I had spent my entire life being that file. Set aside. Deemed low return. Left on the edge of someone's desk to be dealt with later or not at all. And sitting there in my apartment at midnight, reading those stories, I understood something that no classroom had taught me. The most valuable things in the world are often the ones nobody is paying attention to. The seed Seraphina spends the last 4 months of her university career quietly, systematically building what will become the foundation of Halcyon Strategy Group. She drafts a business model in her notebook during call center shifts. She builds mock client profiles using the dropped accounts as templates. She identifies a specific gap in the consulting market. Mid-size companies with genuine operational strength but no strategic visibility. The businesses that larger firms dismiss because the margins aren't flashy enough. By the morning of her graduation, she has 37 pages of notes, a name she hasn't told anyone yet, and exactly $2,200 in her savings account. She also has a train to catch. I arrived at the ceremony alone. Found my seat. Waited for my name. When they called it, I walked across that stage and shook the dean's hand and thought about one thing only. Not the family that wasn't in the audience, but the business that was waiting in my notebook. The one nobody had handed me. The one I was about to build from scratch. The first office 3 days after graduation. Seraphina rents a small shared workspace in a building off North Tryon Street, 12 feet wide, a single window facing a parking structure, a desk she buys secondhand from a church sale for $40. She sets up her laptop, stacks her notebooks and sits down. It was not impressive. It was not meant to be. It was a starting point, and a starting point was all I needed. She names the firm Halcyon Strategy Group. She looks up the definition one more time before printing her first business card. Halcyon, denoting a period of time in the past that was idyllically happy and peaceful. Time worth returning to. For her clients, she decides that would be the promise. A return to what they were always capable of. The failures Seraphina's first 3 engagements are commercial failures. A local print shop whose owner resists every recommendation. A personal training studio where the financial situation is far worse than disclosed. A catering company that dissolves mid-engagement due to a partnership dispute. She loses time, resources, and nearly her confidence. One specific night. She is sitting on her apartment floor with 3 empty coffee cups and a spreadsheet that will not balance, and she lets herself feel the full weight of it. No walls up. Just the honest weight. There was a voice, quiet, familiar, that asked whether they had been right. Whether I was the girl who tried hard but never quite arrived. I sat with that voice for exactly 1 hour. Then I closed the spreadsheet, opened a fresh one, and started analyzing what had gone wrong with each client. Not to feel better. To get better. Ephraim Doolin. Seraphina reaches back to the name that had stayed with her since Professor Voss's class. Ephraim Doolin, the furniture craftsman. She drives to his workshop on a Thursday morning with a printed proposal and nothing else. The workshop smells of cedar and linseed oil. Ephraim is 61, careful with his words, visibly exhausted by years of doing extraordinary work to a shrinking audience. Your product is better than anything I've seen from companies 10 times your size. The problem isn't what you make. It's that nobody outside this city knows you exist. Ephraim. I've heard words like that before. What comes after the words? Seraphina. A plan. A real one. And I don't ask you to pay me until the numbers move. Ephraim studies her for a long moment. Then he nods. The work 6 weeks of deep, disciplined work. Seraphina rebuilds Ephraim's entire market presence from the foundation. A website that tells the story of 3 generations of craft. A targeted wholesale outreach campaign to boutique interior design firms in Charlotte, Raleigh, and Atlanta. A pricing restructure that positions his pieces as investment furniture rather than commodity goods. She writes every word of his brand materials herself, staying until midnight in his workshop photographing pieces under proper lighting. I understood him. Not just professionally. I understood what it felt like to be undervalued by people who should have known better. And that understanding made me work harder than any brief or contract ever could. The turn 10 weeks after engagement. Ephraim Doolan's workshop receives wholesale inquiries from 4 interior design firms in 2 cities. A regional lifestyle magazine runs a feature, The Craftsman Charlotte Forgot, prompted by Seraphina's press outreach. Orders double within the month. Ephraim calls her on a Friday evening. Seraphina, I have more orders than I know what to do with. She sits very still for a moment. Then she exhales. That means the next problem is capacity. I'll come in Monday. The resignation 3 months later. Seraphina has 3 paying clients and a 4th in negotiation. She is still technically employed by Marmon Cross's firm. One morning, Marmon calls her into his office. He has seen the magazine feature on Ephraim Doolan. He does not congratulate her. You ran that engagement independently, on firm time, using firm-adjacent relationships. Seraphina. I ran it on my own time using a contact I developed before I ever walked into this building. Silence. Seraphina. I've already drafted my resignation. I was going to hand it to you this afternoon. She sets it on his desk, picks up her bag, walks out into the Charlotte morning with the particular lightness of someone who has just stopped carrying something that was never hers to carry. Building a team 18 months after founding, Halcyon has outgrown the shared workspace. Seraphina signs a lease on a proper office in uptown Charlotte. Exposed brick, high ceilings, windows facing the skyline. She hires 3 people. First, Lydia Bonner, a financial analyst who left a larger firm because she was tired of working on projects that existed to generate fees rather than outcomes. Sharp, exacting, no patience for performance. Second, Rufus McGraw, a former operations manager with 20 years of experience turning around manufacturing businesses. Quiet, methodical, and almost frighteningly precise about process. Third, Pearl Haskins, communications and brand strategist. She has the rare ability to find the true story inside a business and tell it in a way that makes people stop and listen. I didn't hire resumes. I hired people who had something to prove. People who knew what it felt like to be underestimated. We built a culture out of that, not bitterness but intention. Everything we did was on purpose. The defining case Halcyon takes on Mabel Cross Textiles, a regional fabric and apparel manufacturer with 70 employees, a declining wholesale client list, and a reputation that should have been worth 10 times what it was generating. The family behind it, led by aging founder Clyde Cross, is resistant to change and exhausted by years of slow erosion. The engagement is the largest and most complex Seraphina has attempted. Rufus restructures the operations. Lydia rebuilds the financial model. Pearl repositions the brand identity. Seraphina leads client strategy personally, spending the first 3 weeks simply listening to Clyde talk about what the company was before it became what it now is. Everyone who's come in here has told me what I'm doing wrong. Nobody's ever asked me what I used to do right. Then let's start there. The result and the ripple 14 months into the Mabel Cross engagement. Revenue up significantly. 2 new national wholesale accounts. A feature in a business publication with regional reach. And the detail that changes everything. One of Clyde's new wholesale partners is acquired by a national retail group. And in the acquisition documentation, Halcyon Strategy Group is listed as a key contributor to the turnaround success. The phone starts ringing with calls from companies Seraphina has never contacted. I hadn't chased visibility. I had chased outcomes. And outcomes done well enough create their own noise. The Forbes regional feature, a reporter from a regional business publication reaches out requesting a profile. Seraphina agrees. The piece runs under the headline, "The Quiet Firm Winning Where Others Won't Look." It focuses on Halcyon's specific niche, the overlooked mid-market, and quotes 3 clients, including Ephraim, who says something that Seraphina reads 3 times before putting her phone down. She didn't just fix our numbers. She made us believe we were worth fixing. The valuation 2 years and 7 months after founding. A regional private equity group, Turlo Capital, approaches Halcyon with a partnership inquiry. Meetings in glass-walled conference rooms. Questions about financials, client retention, scalability, pipeline. Seraphina answers every question directly. She negotiates not just for capital but for operational independence, for the right to continue serving the specific market segment that defines the firm, for the ability to keep doing the work the way it was designed to be done. On the final day, Emmett Turlo, the firm's managing partner, looks up from the document in front of him. We're prepared to value Halcyon at $9.9 million. The room is quiet. Then let's talk about the terms. Her hand does not shake. Her voice does not change. She has been building toward this moment for 3 years. Not this room specifically, but this version of herself. The one who sits in rooms like this and belongs there completely. The night after, Seraphina does not call her parents. She calls Lydia, Rufus, and Pearl. They go to a restaurant they have passed 100 times without entering. They sit at a corner table and spend 3 hours talking about everything they built together. The early failures. The late nights. The moments each of them almost walked away. Do you feel different? Seraphina thinks for a moment. No. I feel like myself. Just louder. The call. Seraphina is midway through a strategy session with her team when her phone vibrates on the table. She glances at the screen. Mom. The room doesn't change. The light doesn't shift. But something inside Seraphina goes very still. She stands, excuses herself quietly, and walks to her private office. 5 years of silence. No calls after the graduation. No message when the Forbes piece ran. Nothing when the Turlo deal closed. 5 years of choosing not to reach, and now this, a vibration on a Tuesday afternoon, as if no time had passed at all. She answers. Seraphina. Oh, I'm so glad you picked up. Your father and I have been meaning to call. We've been following everything. The article, the partnership, we're just so proud. So proud. We were thinking it's been too long. We'd love to come see your office. See what you've built. Maybe this Friday. Seraphina doesn't answer immediately. Friday doesn't work. Wednesday at 2. I have 1 hour. Kathleen. Wednesday is perfect. We'll be there. And Seraphina, we're bringing Lorelei. She ends the call. Stands at her window for a moment, looking at the skyline. Then she goes back to her team and finishes the meeting. The preparation that evening, Seraphina sits alone at her desk and thinks. Not emotionally. Practically. She knows exactly why they are coming. It isn't to apologize. It isn't to reconnect. Something needs fixing and they have decided she is the resource. She has watched this pattern her entire life. It has simply scaled to match her current circumstances. She opens her desk drawer. Pulls out her personal checkbook. Sets it to one side. Then she opens her laptop and begins typing a document. I didn't plan the meeting as revenge. I planned it as clarity. There is a difference. Revenge is emotional. Clarity is structural. I wanted to give them both, but in that order. The arrival Wednesday. 1:54 p.m. Seraphina watches from her window. Isaac's black SUV pulls in first. Behind it, unhurried and gleaming, Lorelei's 2026 Mercedes C-Class. Still perfect. Not a scratch. Like the morning of the graduation had been preserved in the paint. 3 years. And that car looked exactly the same. As if nothing had passed. As if nothing had cost them anything. As if everything had remained exactly as they had arranged it. Her assistant brings them up. When the elevator opens, Kathleen steps forward first, arms open, the familiar scent of expensive perfume arriving before she does. The hug she gives Seraphina is warm on the surface and weightless underneath. Just look at this place. Seraphina, it's stunning. You've done something truly remarkable. Isaac steps forward, shakes her hand. His eyes move around the room, cataloging, assessing, running numbers in his head the way he always has. You've done well, Seraphina. This is impressive work. Not pride. An assessment. The same tone he used at every school award, every accomplishment, every moment she ever brought home something she had earned. She recognizes it immediately. Lorelei barely looks up from her phone. Hey! The tour Seraphina walks them through the office. Introduces them to Lydia, Pearl, Rufus. Points out ongoing client work displayed on the strategy boards. Kathleen reacts warmly to everything. Isaac asks 2 specific questions about revenue structure, which Seraphina answers with 1 sentence each. Lorelei takes a photo of the view from the window and posts it without comment. They were seeing the result. They had no framework for the cost. They didn't know about the Tuesday nights or the failed first clients or the moment I sat on my apartment floor and talked myself out of giving up. They saw the room. They missed the story. Some things don't change. The proposal they settle in Seraphina's office. Kathleen begins, her voice sliding into something rehearsed and careful. You know, watching you today, all of this, it makes me think of Lorelei. She has such a creative instinct. She's been developing this concept. A luxury handbag line, Guilt and Grace. The aesthetic is beautiful, she has the eye. She just needs the right structure around it. A strategy. A launch plan. Someone who understands the market. She pauses. Meets Seraphina's eyes. We thought with your resources it wouldn't take much. A bit of your team's time. Some capital to get it started. As family. Isaac leans forward and places a neatly bound document on the desk. We've prepared a full proposal. Projections, structure, a launch timeline. All you'd need to do is provide the initial capital and the operational support. It's a reasonable ask, given everything we've invested in you over the years. Seraphina looks at the document. Then she looks at her father. Everything we've invested in you. She doesn't move. She doesn't speak. She lets the silence fill the room and expand until it becomes something physical. Something they can feel pressing against them from all sides. Then she reaches into her desk drawer. The document Seraphina sets her personal checkbook on the desk beside the bound proposal her father brought. She opens the document she typed the evening before and turns her laptop screen to face them. It is formatted as a formal consulting invoice. Client: Isaac Mills and Kathleen Mills. Services rendered: full parental support. Academic years 2019 to 2023. Itemized: emotional presence, not provided. Graduation attendance, not provided. Financial safety net, partial, insufficient. Belief, not provided. Total value of services received: $1 balance due. $0 status. Paid in full. At the bottom in the notes field, train fare, May 2023. Returned herewith. She writes the check. $1. Tears it from the book. The sound is clean and final. She clips it to the invoice and sets it within reach of her father. This clears everything. Every form of support you believe you extended, financial, emotional, any of it. We are even. Isaac stares at the document. His expression moves through confusion, then recognition, then something hot and uncontrolled. After everything we've done for you, this is what you give us. Tell me specifically what you've done. Take your time. I'll wait. Silence. Not because he has too much to say. Because he realizes for the first time how thin the list actually is. Seraphina stands. Her voice stays level. This is not the release of years of emotion. This is the delivery of a prepared statement. You missed my graduation to stand in a driveway for a car. You spent my entire childhood making sure I understood exactly where I ranked in this family. You sent me through 4 years of university with the kind of support that said, you'll manage, and expected me to call that enough. And now you walk into something I built alone and tell me it's the least I could do. She pauses. I'm not angry at you. I want you to understand that. I made peace with who you are a long time ago. This invoice is not a punishment. It's an accounting. And the account is closed. Kathleen's tears. Kathleen has been crying for the last 2 minutes. Quiet, shaken tears. Not the theatrical ones she cried in the driveway over the Mercedes. These are real. We always loved you, Seraphina. We just. I know you did. In the way you knew how to. That's what makes it what it is. She does not say it with cruelty. She says it with the specific, sad precision of someone who has already processed every angle of a truth and arrived somewhere beyond it. The exit. Isaac picks up the invoice. His jaw is set. He says nothing more. He straightens his jacket, collects the proposal he brought, and walks toward the door without looking back. Kathleen follows, one hand pressed to her face. Lorelai sets her phone down, glances once at Seraphina, something flickering across her expression that might be guilt, might be confusion, and then follows her parents. The elevator doors close. The office is very quiet. The hollow space. Seraphina sits down. Slowly, she looks at her desk, at the view, at the city through the glass. She waits for the feeling she expected. The relief. The satisfaction. The particular warmth of a door closed on something that hurt you for a long time. It does not arrive. I had imagined that moment for years. Not every day, not obsessively, but it had been there, a shape at the edge of my thinking. And now that it was over, what was left was not victory. It was just space. Empty, quiet space where a wound used to be. I had finally said everything I needed to say. And it turned out that saying it didn't fill the place where being loved by them would have been. She sits with that for a long time. Then she picks up her phone and calls Lydia. How did it go? It's done, Seraphina says. Come back. We have work to do. The turn inward that night, staying late after her team leaves, Seraphina finds herself looking at a photograph on her office shelf. Not her family, never them. It is a photo taken at Ephraim Doolan's workshop the day his first major wholesale order came in. They are both covered in sawdust. Ephraim is laughing. Seraphina's eyes are bright and disbelieving and completely alive. That was the feeling I had been looking for all afternoon. Not in the confrontation. Not in the accounting. It was here, in this photograph, in the memory of a moment where I made something better for someone who deserved better. That was the thing that actually filled the space. That was what I had been building toward without knowing it. She puts the photograph down, opens her laptop, and begins writing the first notes for what will become the Bridgeline Fellowship. The idea takes shape 3 weeks after the confrontation. Seraphina has spent her evenings drafting something she has no name for yet. A program, a structure, a system. She keeps returning to one specific image. Herself on that train platform in her graduation gown, coffee cup in hand, watching the city and deciding something cold and permanent. And then she thinks about how many people are on that platform right now. Not the same train, not the same city, not the same family, but the same exact feeling. The one that says, nobody is coming, so figure it out alone. What saved me wasn't money. It wasn't recognition. It was the moment I decided that the absence of their belief did not constitute evidence that I was unbelievable. And I thought, what if someone had told me that? Not after the fact. Not in a success story. Right there, at the platform before I had proved anything. What if someone had shown up and said, I see you and I believe in what you're building. The name arrives quietly, fully formed. Bridgeline Fellowship. Building it right. Seraphina allocates $1.2 million from Halcyon's returns to fund the inaugural cohort. She assembles a board carefully. Ephraim Doolan accepts a seat on the advisory panel. Professor Harlan Voss agrees to mentor fellows directly. The fellowship is structured comprehensively. Full funding for tuition, housing, books, and a small emergency reserve. Every fellow is paired with a mentor active in their target field. Bi-monthly cohort sessions so no fellow moves through the program in isolation. I built it the way I wish someone had built something for me. Not as charity, as infrastructure, as the belief, formalized and funded, that the effort of people no one is watching still matters. The application portal opens on a Monday. By Friday, more than 800 applications have come in from 12 states. Seraphina reads every one personally over the following 2 weeks. Each file is a life. Each one carrying something the world has not yet paid attention to. She reads late into the nights, her apartment quiet around her. Some applications are polished and precise. Others are raw and barely organized but alive with something real. She marks those ones twice. Clara McGraw. One application stops her. Clara McGraw, 22. First-generation university student from a small town in western North Carolina. Academic record, exceptional. Financial situation, precarious. Career goal, special education teacher, specifically serving children with developmental delays. Her personal statement is 3 paragraphs. The last one reads, my parents think this is a nice dream but not a practical one. They told me that if I pursue education instead of something stable, I'm on my own. They said they won't come to my graduation, not for something they don't believe in. Maybe later if I prove it was worth it. Seraphina reads the last sentence twice. Then she sets her phone down and looks at the ceiling for a long time. That sentence had a shape I recognized. I had lived inside it. And sitting there reading Clara's words, I understood something completely. The point of everything I had built, every late night, every decision, every moment I chose to keep going instead of stop, it was pointing toward this. Toward her. Toward all of them. The one still on the platform, still deciding. She calls Clara directly the next morning. Clara, this is Seraphina Mills from Bridgeline. I'm calling to tell you that you've been selected for the fellowship. You don't have to prove it was worth it first. We already believe in you. A long silence. Then Clara starts crying. Not softly, not briefly. The kind of release that comes from holding too much for too long. Seraphina stays on the line. She doesn't rush it. She understands exactly what it is. The first cohort event 1 year later. The Bridgeline Fellowship's first annual gathering. 43 fellows in one room. 43 stories that started in difficulty and are now moving forward. Seraphina moves through the space, greeting each one. Not as their benefactor. As the person who was once them. Clara speaks at the evening's close. She stands at the front of the room, composed and certain in a way that her application had only hinted at. This fellowship didn't just pay for my education. It gave me permission to believe my path was real. I stopped waiting for someone else to confirm it. I started building it because someone showed me it was worth building. Seraphina sits in the third row and feels something settle inside her. Quiet, warm, and entirely unlike anything the confrontation in her office had produced. Not triumph. Something older and better than triumph. Peace. The billboard several months later. A Tuesday evening. Seraphina's phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number. She opens it. A photograph, nighttime, a highway somewhere outside Charlotte. A billboard rising above the treeline. On it, a Bridgeline Fellowship scholar, smiling, clear-eyed, confident. The tagline beneath, "Your future starts here." Standing at the edge of the frame, small against the billboard's light, her mother, Kathleen, looking up at it. The message below the photo reads, "We drove 2 hours to see this. We see you, Seraphina. We always did." Seraphina sits with the photograph for a long time. She waits for the old feelings to arrive. The need to respond with everything left unsaid. The urge to remind Kathleen of what was missed and what it cost. None of it comes. Internal monologue. I had spent the first half of my life waiting to hear those words. And now that they had arrived, I found I didn't need them anymore. Not because the wound had disappeared. Some wounds leave permanent marks, but because I had filled the space they left with something that didn't depend on their presence to hold its shape. Something real. Something mine. She types her reply. 2 lines. She does not hesitate. "Thank you. I built this on my own. And I'll keep building." She sets the phone down, face up this time. Then she opens her laptop and goes back to work. Direct address to the audience. Narrator speaks directly to camera. Warm, clear, unhurried. My name is Seraphina Mills. And if you've made it to the end of this story, I want to say something to you directly. Not to the version of you that already has everything figured out. To the version of you that is still on the platform. Still in the gown. Still holding the transit card and watching people celebrate around you without turning to look. The approval you are waiting for may never come. That is one of the hardest truths there is. But here is what I learned slowly and perfectly, through more late nights than I can count. You do not need their belief to begin. You need yours. The strength you are building in the absence of support, the kind that comes from having no safety net, no applause, no one recording the moment. That strength is not a substitute for what you should have had. It is its own thing entirely. Harder won, deeper rooted, and in the end, more yours than anything handed to you could ever be. Don't build for them. Don't build to prove them wrong. Build because what you are creating matters to you and to the people who are waiting for someone to build it. That is the quiet revenge. Not a confrontation, not an invoice, not a single dramatic moment. It is a life built so fully, so intentionally, so on your own terms, that the people who doubted you become footnotes in a story that was never really about them. If this story reached something in you today, something you've been carrying quietly, hit like so it can reach someone else who needs it. Share it with the person in your life who is still deciding whether to keep going. Subscribe if you believe that the stories of people who kept going anyway deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you're building. I read everyone.